Hey, friend, welcome back to Sex Addicted Christian. Let me ask you a question. When you're tempted, what is your first response to that temptation to look at porn? When temptation hits, most people go into a fight or flight mode. They panic, or sometimes you negotiate. Panic kind of sounds like this: oh no, here we go again. And negotiation sounds something like maybe just one more time. But, friend, if you want freedom, you need a plan before your temptation comes. So, I want to share with you a simple framework today that will absolutely help you win this battle against temptation when it arises. So, you don't need to rise to the level of your intentions in the moment of temptation. Does that make sense? You don't want to rise up to your intention level. What's going to end up happening is you're going to fall to the level of your preparation. And so, first thing I need you to understand is that in your temptation, this is so important for you to understand today. In your temptation, that is not the same as failure. We see, in fact, in scripture that Jesus himself was tempted, and we know that Jesus didn't fail. So the fact that temptation shows up doesn't mean that you're disgusting, you're fake, you're hopeless, you're abandoned by God. Many people I see relapse because temptation actually creates shame before they've even sinned. I was speaking with one of my clients this week that I coach one-on-one, and he was telling me a little bit about some temptation that he had. He was thinking about some things randomly, not even sexual things. He was just having some thoughts about some different relationships, and that those thoughts actually led him into a temptation. And he wanted to talk through that this week. And we spoke about that. And this was a very important part of that conversation and a framework for you to make sure you get as we begin this conversation today, is that your temptation doesn't mean you're a failure. We've got to understand that temptation is a natural part of the human experience. It's a natural part of the sinful human experience. It's a natural part of the world we live in. Temptation has to be understood as an opportunity to do the battle that we need to do to prepare in the way we need to prepare and to live the life that God has called us to do. But if you are experiencing this kind of shame that is creating this emotional discomfort, and this emotional discomfort is creating the vulnerability, if this is you today, I want to, before we get started, I'm going to give you this wonderful framework today that I want you to work through. I want you to apply to your life and overcome temptation. But if you're dealing with shame and you're continuing to fall to that temptation, and that shame cycle continues to go around and around and around through this addiction trap, I want to invite you to the Crush the Shame Challenge, because this is going to be a live 3-day event next week, in fact. So if you're listening to this, you'll be listening to this on Tuesday next week. So that means it starts tomorrow. So you got less than 24 hours to join me for the Crush the Shame Challenge. Make sure you sign up for this event. You have to be there. Even if you feel like you're seeing some success, I want you to be there. We need to understand the framework of shame and how it plays such a significant part in our being stuck in our addiction. So please make sure you join me for that. If you're listening to this at a later date, you can jump in the next one. I do it every month. And so make sure you sign up for that. You can get all that information below in the link in the show notes, or you can go to sexaddictedchristian.com and find all of that. So I want to introduce something to you. I recently read a book called The Freedom Fight by Ted Shimmer. This is the book here. If you haven't picked this book up, I'd encourage you to pick it up. There is a lot of amazing things in this book. One of the better books I've read, and in fact, the chapter on the brain is probably the best chapter in a book I've read in a long time. So shout out to you, Ted. Thank you so much for that work. But in that book, he lays out a pretty practical framework that I thought was extremely helpful for moments of temptation. He calls it the brace method, or the brace framework. And so I want to talk through that today. I mean, there's a lot of things in this book that are extremely helpful. There's some things in this book that I would maybe frame a little differently, but overall, I found this book extremely, extremely wonderful in its work to help us against addiction and recovery. And so I wanted to share this brace method with you. I'll give you the basic outline. Brace is an acronym that he uses, and he says, B is for breathe. Well, we're going to talk through each of these and break each of these down. Breathe, remember the truth, ask God for help, call a friend, and escape the situation. And so let's break this down. I want to give you some of my thoughts. I'm not reading from his book. He elaborates on these in a little bit different way. So I just want to use that framework. I think you could apply this framework today, friend, and start experiencing some significant success and freedom from your temptations whenever they hit. And so the first one is breathe. So when temptation hits, your body often moves into an urgency and reaction. So we sometimes, as I mentioned already earlier, we call this kind of the fight or flight mode. And this is a common body response to potential danger. It's very common with sex addicts whose bodies really have just been wrecked by years of addiction cycles. And because of this, I actually found something extremely helpful for me in kind of doing this part of my recovery. It's one of the reasons that I personally love cold plunges or ice baths. I don't know if you've ever done any of those, but what happens in a cold plunge experience, and when I do a cold plunge, I'm at pretty significant, I don't know, 48 to 50 degree water. It might not sound too cold to you, but I encourage you to jump in one of those and you'll see how cold it is quick. They've taught me how to regulate my nervous system and to breathe through discomfort instead of just reacting to pain. This is an interesting piece that I don't think a lot of, especially Christian recovery helpers talk about, is the fact that we're embodied souls. So we're talking about a spiritual thing when we're talking about porn addiction, sexual misconduct. I mean, these are all things that are connected to God's morality, our life as a human, our sin, our need for forgiveness. There's a soul aspect for sure. And really primarily at the end of the day, we need Jesus to rescue us. There's no doubt about that. But Jesus, when we were created, we were put into a body, and our body is a whole different animal. And so being what we're going to call an embodied soul, whenever we're dealing with things like addiction or any other thing for that matter, we need to give attention not just to the spirit of the man, but also to the body of the man. We don't just live spiritually, we also live physically, emotionally, neurologically. And so these ice baths have been super helpful for me because I've been able to expose my body to what would be like a threat, and then to be able to start training myself to respond as if I can overcome it. Right? I can overcome the pain. I can overcome the flood of emotion and body chemicals that are busting through my body, wanting to tell me to run away from this potential danger. But I've learned to slow down. I've learned to breathe. And I've learned that I don't have to obey every feeling that my body produces. So sometimes temptation can lose its power the moment we stop panicking and get out of the fight or flight mode. And so I encourage you, as he talks about here, to first slow down and breathe. Check out breathing exercises. Look for other ways to train yourself to breathe in that first moment of temptation. All right, so that's the B. The next one is the R. Remember the truth. All right, listen, friend, this is a huge one. In my own shame cycle, right, there's this, what's usually happening is there's an emotional trigger, and we're going to talk a lot about this in the Crush the Shame Challenge, so be there tomorrow again. I'm going to keep throwing that out there because it's the best thing you could do for your recovery. So we're going to talk in depth about this tomorrow or in the next Shame Challenge. There's an emotional trigger or a discomfort that we experience that immediately kind of cycles around to this temptation. And then it's after that temptation that we end up acting out. And the acting out leads to, some temporary relief, but then we get into the shame and then we hide, isolate, and then we keep going in this circle, okay? So we'll talk in depth about that in the challenge. But the trigger, listen to me, friend, the trigger that you're experiencing or the discomfort that you're experiencing that because of a deeper truth underneath it. There's something underneath the trigger that you have to identify. So there's a trigger that leads to a temptation, and in between here is a really, really awesome opportunity. And this is why I talk so much in my 4C framework, in the 4 pillars of the porn-free life. That third thing, confront the cause. We say we're here to crush the shame, cultivate community, confront the cause, the true deeper cause of the addiction, and then we commit to change, we build a plan, do all those things. This is why I talk so much about confronting the deeper causes beneath the addiction. The temptation itself is often downstream of this lie or wound that we're operating from, right? So we end up truly, you feel the trigger happens and the temptation comes, But what's happening underneath, deep in our spirit, like deep in the heart, David talks about like his hands, his head, and his heart. And when David's repenting in Psalm 139, he's repenting at three levels. And we miss this so often. We often want to focus on the outward things. We want to willpower our way through it. But deeper down, this is what can unlock it. This is why I want you guys to do the 4 pillars of the porn-free life. I want you to join me for one-on-one coaching. I want you to come to one of my like intensive events. I want to help you drill this down and understand some of these common lies that may be operating deep within, that you're not enough, that you'll always be rejected, that you have to have comfort, that you have to have control, that you have to have approval. In moments of temptation, we don't need behavior management. We need truth. So this are here to remember the truth is such a massive part of overcoming temptation, because we want to understand that we are not the lie that we believe. And I want to help you identify that lie. If you want to dive deep into that, you can always reach out to me on the website through the coaching options. I'd love to spend significant time with you identifying that. It is important, friend. It's not that you're disgusting, but instead you're a child of God. It's not that you'll never change. It's that freedom actually is possible. So if you want to interrupt the cycle, if you can do it, if you can interrupt this cycle long enough to remember the truth, don't just trigger temptation, go act out. We're trying to, as we're learning here, brace for that temptation. We breathe, and then we remember the truth long enough so that you can begin working backwards toward what's really happening underneath that temptation. Okay, BR, next one is A. And A is ask God for help. This sounds simple, but friend, don't underestimate this. Don't try to suppress temptation. Like, listen, stop trying to white knuckle yourself through the temptation. You're not going to win. You might win for a moment. You might win for the afternoon. You might win till tomorrow. But if that's your strategy, you are in trouble, okay? So don't try to just suppress the temptation. I need you to bring God into the moment. I need you to pray honestly to him. No rehearsed prayers, no religious prayers. God is not shocked by this in you, friend. He's not shocked by this. He's sad. He wants you to win. He wants your victory, but he's inviting you toward dependence, honesty, and surrender. So we don't have to spend a lot of time here, but A, ask God for help. Such a massive, important part of this. Bring God into the moment. Just because you're tempted, just because you're imagining, thinking things that seem crazy in terms of connection to who God is, he is with you. He's never left you. He's never forsaken you. We know that. That's scripturally true. That's our promise. Bring him into the conversation, okay? Ask God for help. C, we're almost toward the end here. Call a friend. C, call a friend. We have got to get out of our head as fast as possible. When we stay hidden in our minds, when we stay secret, when we don't verbalize, when we don't get outside of our own head, we get stuck fast. And that secret, the temptation, what you're thinking through, what you're going through, that secret grows in silence. So this is where secrecy has to start breaking, right? I've shared this in a previous video, but I live in Florida, and I don't know where you live, and I don't know if it's true where you live, but in Florida, we have these things called roaches, okay? We have a massive business model here in the state of Florida for bug control, and they come every month and spray and sweep and put things everywhere. And it doesn't matter how clean you keep your house, roaches are going to show up. It sounds gross, but it's true. You usually don't see roaches, though, in the daytime. They're just not around. The roaches love the darkness, okay? And so whenever I see a roach, it's typically like when I need a late night snack and I go to the garage fridge or something like that, and I flip the light on and there are roaches in the floor, and then they scatter. As soon as I turn that light on, they run and hide under some box, under the fridge, under whatever, because they hate the light. The moment that light comes on, they scatter. And this, friends, is why we call a friend, why we get out of our head as quick as possible. Because what happens when we bring temptation into the light? The temptation, the sin, it runs and hides. It hates the light. Remember what John says in his first epistle, 1 John. If we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship with one another. This is what we're going for. Fellowship with one another. Call a friend. We have fellowship with one another, and the blood of Jesus, his son, cleanses us from all sin. There is something powerful, extremely powerful spiritually when we call, text, whatever we've got to do, show up at someone's house, whatever it is. We confess, we get honest, we pursue community. We text someone, we call, we tell the truth quickly. Friends, shame grows in secrecy. Freedom comes by way of the light. We're on E now. This is the last part of this brace framework that we see here is escape the situation. So once we've breathed, once we've remembered, once we have asked God for help and we've called a friend, we run like hell. Get out of that situation. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is leave. Listen to me, friend. Just pack your bag and go somewhere else. Wherever you are, if you're at the gym, then your gym time is over. Run, get out of there. Come back later. Get out. If you're at the coffee shop and the girl's sitting across and she's winking at you and it is not a good situation, get the heck out of Dodge. Put the phone down, go outside, leave the house, change environments. You are not weak for escaping temptation. You are actually being wise. So, breathing, remembering, asking God, calling a friend, escaping the situation. Friend, brace is your plan. Embrace brace. Embrace brace. I truly believe, friend, you're going to find a lot of success if you are willing to lean into this. Couple last thoughts here as we kind of bring this whole temptation thing down to a close. If temptation is something that continues to overwhelm you in the same places over and over again, it may be time for you to reevaluate your recovery plan. I don't know how far you've gotten into your recovery. The last pillar, the 4 pillars of a porn-free life in the 4C framework is to commit to change. And I help my clients actually put together a battle plan. Like, this is the recovery plan. And we work that through and we coach that through over time. And so if you've already kind of gotten to that recovery plan, or maybe you don't even have one, if you don't have one, then we need to get one created for you. So hit me up, let's get one created. But if you have one already, but you continue to find yourself in a very similar pattern of temptation, then it's very likely that you need to kind of go back to the drawing board and change that plan. Like, plans are great, but they're not perfect. And real life application of a plan will expose its weaknesses. And so that's what we need to make sure we are constantly going back and reevaluating that plan and seeing where the unique moments are for you that put you into situations that maybe are too difficult. So, are you isolated? Are you exhausted? Are you emotionally unhealthy? Are you overstimulated? Is there secrecy that you're living in that we're not dealing with? Are you running from some deeper pain? Temptation just often exposes those places where we need healing, structure, honesty, and support. And then one last thought here is just, I don't know if you got a chance to watch last week's video, but I was very inspired by this Celebration of Life service that I got a chance to attend for a friend's father. And I just want to remind you today, friend, that overcoming porn, that's just not the goal. Like, that's like the first step, and it's important. Like, it is so important. And that's why I'm here, because I want to help you get past that. But I want you to see the big, giant vision in front of you, that the goal is truly becoming fully alive in Jesus. And so many of us, and maybe you, friend, are spending your entire life trying not to sin. And that's important, but never really stepping into the life that God has created for you. So freedom's not just escaping darkness, it's stepping into purpose, joy, connection, worship, calling. Don't just run from sin, friend. Run towards life. So, friend, if you're stuck and you're tired of living stuck in shame and secrecy, again, I want to invite you to join me for the Crush the Shame Challenge. If you haven't signed up and you're watching this live this week, it's tomorrow. You still have a chance to sign up. It's going to be a live 3-day experience, and it's designed specifically out of my own. I mean, we're talking decades of recovery work that I've helped others do out of my own struggles with this. And it's there to help you understand how and why shame is keeping you trapped and begin taking your first steps toward the light and freedom. You can find that link below in the show notes. It's always easy to access on sexaddictedchristian.com. Friend, I am so thankful for you. Friend, temptation is not the end of your story. Freedom is possible. I love you guys. I'm praying for you, and I can't wait to see you again on an episode real soon.